Just been clicked here. Golly, what a night. So anyhow, I took a real quick nap, and then I got up, and you can still see my hair. When I got up, I came over to the computer and started to get ready for tonight's discussion, and my camera wasn't operating. So I don't know why, but about every other day, third day or whatever, the camera just goes dead. And when the camera goes dead, I have to completely reboot the computer. So that's where I've been for the last 10 minutes, is rebooting the computer and getting everything signed back in so that I could be here with you. So thank you for your patience. I'm sorry I was about 30 seconds late from where I'd like to be, but as we say back home in El Paso, mierda pasará. Poo-poo happens. Clarity Jane, hello and welcome. Diana too, and Little Lone Prepper. Wow, some of my favorites. All right, I did get myself some vanilla ice cream, and just finished it as the system was rebooting. Of course, two of the three Chihuahuas love ice cream, so they got to lick the bowl when I was done, and they were very happy about that. Now they're gone. They got what they wanted. They're gone. Golly, hello, Clarity Jane again. And I guess y'all are talking to each other. Okay, so kind of exciting. Wow, what a great book. I tell you, there are some phenomenal authors out there. So tonight we're doing Homecoming, book 10 from A American. My notes that I took on reading the book here. I didn't have that many tabs or highlights in this one. This one's almost a pristine book. So just nothing new that was exciting to share with you. A fantastic storyline, just not that much as far as new prepping stuff or new ideas around prepping. So I also finished yesterday Black Autumn, which is written by Jeff Kirkham and Jason Ross. Now, in the last epilogue of this one, he introduces Evan, I think his name is, let's see here. The epilogue, where is afterward about the authors. So anyhow, at the end of this book, they find tons of uncooked, I think it's Guatemalan coffee beans. And so they decided to go and roast them and grind them and start a coffee company called Black Rifle Coffee Company. So anyhow, so one of the authors, I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's Jason. It might be Jeff. Is a ex-Special Forces, 19th Special Forces group, I believe, if I remember right. Yeah, Jeff Kirkham was with, I believe he's with 19th Special Forces, but he is the inventor of the RATS, the Rapid Application Tourniquet. And then he also has a couple other fantastic things behind him as far as information. So this is a great book. I'm going to get book number 2 in the series. I've got some other stuff I need to finish first, and then I'll take a look at that. This is a phenomenal book that we're talking about tonight. I just finished reading book 3 of Franklin Horton's series that we're kind of interspersing in between when we're doing with A American. So we're doing one volume from A American, and the following month we're doing one volume from Franklin Horton. We'll be doing his volume 2 at the end of this month. So I'll put that link in there, tonight's show notes, so that you can get that book and we can talk about it at the end of the month, regular scheduled times. I also have 2 other ones that I need to get read here pretty soon. I bought Gray Wolves by Joe Nobody, and then and that was recommended by A American, who will be talking about his book tonight. And then I got Blue Dawn by Blaine Pardoe, and that was recommended by Franklin Horton. So both of these guys, they've got other people who are recommending them. What I like about Franklin and what I like about Chris Weatherman, A American, is they recommend other guys' books. I mean, they are phenomenal writers, but in a sense, they want to share the message. They want other people to be successful as well. And they recommend their books and everything else. So I'm going to follow up and see what they do about that. Let's get into this one. So we're continuing the saga of Morgan and what I call Morganville, his little enclave of people who have come together. So he's got Jesse with him. Remember, Jesse was in book 1. That's the person who accidentally shot him in the back of the head when they were. So the EMP happened, or the CME, whichever, I believe it was an EMP, happened. He was on Interstate 10 up near Tallahassee. He's got to get back down into southern central Florida near Ocala. And so he's walking. He comes across Jesse. Jesse goes with him, and then they meet Thad. So Thad is a truck driver, and the three of them kind of bond together, and they're working together. Then they, of course, when Morgan gets shot by Jesse accidentally, then they take Jesse and Thad take Morgan to this place, and they take care of him. Turns out that it's Sarge, who is a first sergeant who is retired from the 101st Airborne up at Fort Campbell. And at the 101st, they also have a Special Forces group. So he happens to have 3 Special Forces guys there with him, Mike, Ted, and Doc. And so the 3 of them are the Special Forces guys who are with Sarge. And that begins this whole thing. So then the 5 of them, let me see, 4 plus 3, the 7 of them then make their way down to Morgan's home, and everything kind of gets straight. And so they've been going back and forth fighting DHS. They kind of join into the U.S. military, into the Department of Defense. Hello, Pat Butler. And they are integrated in with what's remaining of the Department of Defense, and they're fighting against the Department of Homeland Security. The president has gone underground. He has asked for UN assistance for the disaster that has hit the U.S. Of course, it's an EMP, so it was induced by somebody. And so as part of that, the Chinese come in from on the West Coast, and then the Russians and the Cubans come in Florida and southern area. And so they've got to fight off the Cubans, the Russians, DHS, and so it gets rather exciting, and things happen throughout the book. So today, we're at the point of where when at one point they dropped Jesse off at her home, and they dropped Thad off at his home, and Morgan made it all the way back to his home. Jesse and her friends get caught up, and they go into a DHS camp. The DHS tries to get Thad and his wife and child into the camp. He won't do it, so they burn down the house and basically burn his wife and son alive with that. Thad gets really upset, so Thad didn't know where to go, so he goes down to see Morgan. Jesse, of course, is now in the DHS camp, and in this volume, they refer to the DHS camps as Hotel California. You can check in anytime you want, but you can never leave. And so they refer to the camps as Hotel California. And but then when Morgan and his group, Sarge and the other Special Forces guys, go in to relieve everybody of their captivity by DHS, Jess happens to be there. She, Fred, and Eric is a DHS on the payroll of DHS, but he's a good guy. And so there are 3 women, and they get one of them. Jesse gets raped by this one guy. Fred knows how to make a poison out of nicotine, and they poison this guard, and he dies. And they find out that Jesse, Fred, and what's her name? Diana are all involved in this. So they say they're going to execute them the next day. Eric is planning, because he's fallen in love with Fred, he is planning to save the 3 of them along with Kay, who is the head of the kitchen. And she has kind of been assisting undercover the 3 ladies. So you got 4 women and 1 guy, Eric, Kay, Fred, Jesse, and Diana. And so they're just about ready to come in and get them and execute them. And that's when the Special Forces team and Morgan go in to take down the camp. And so as Sarge is going in to rescue the women, Eric is there to rescue them as well. And of course, Eric's in a DHS outfit. Sarge is in a different outfit. And Eric shoots Sarge in the hip. And it turns out Sarge has one of my hips. It's made out of titanium. And so, but he's wounded and everything kind of gets in. So they finally get out. So now it's been a while. Okay. They've had a couple encounters here and there. They've had a couple bad things happen at Umatilla and the other cities and the National Guard, Sheffield and the other guys. So in this book, we got a couple things going on. Kay and Sarge have hooked up and they're, about to get married. Thad and Diana get hooked up. And of course, Thad is feeling really, really has a lot of emotional issues around that because he feels guilty that he feels good and he's fallen in love with Diana, even because he still feels guilt about having lost his wife and his child. So he's a very emotional kind of a guy. Just, one of those big towering guys that just is gentle as a giant and just has great emotions. So he and Diana get married. Thad and Fred get married. I'm sorry. Eric and Fred get married. Fred is pregnant. And that's one of the themes that kind of happens throughout this entire book is Fred going through her early labor discomforts, let's call it, her early pregnancy discomforts. And let me see, Little on Purpose says she had a very lucid dream about these camps a couple years back. Most of the people in there seemed happy to be there, but I was trying to find a way out. And that's exactly what's happening here. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because that's one of the key notes I think we really need to discuss in here. Hello, Phaeoxerus. Welcome. And so I think that's one of the key things we really have to discuss. I wrote it down as a general topic, not as a specific event. So Sergeant K, Eric and Fred are married. Thad and Diana are married. Okay. And of course, Danny has lost his wife, Bobby, in an attack on the town market, either last book or the book before that. So he's now without a wife. And remember, Bobby was Mel's best friend, and Danny was Morgan's best friend. So, they have a very close relationship, and everybody misses Bobby. So now everything's going on. They've got things going great. They've got a crew of 4 from the Army engineers who are helping. They found out that they do have natural gas. Oh, it looks like I've frozen. Are we still there? Okay, unfrozen. So they've discovered they still have natural gas. Golly, frozen again. Let me know if you guys are experiencing this freezing or not. But it's freezing on my screen. Okay, great. So they do have natural gas still flowing. They have a power plant that basically was for one of I believe it was a sugar factory. And so now the Army engineers are getting this power plant up, and they're running power to Umatilla and the other places, and they're getting electricity up. So just as all this is happening, all of a sudden they get a Grad attack. Now, Grad means hail. So if you look back to what they called Stalin's organs back in World War II, they had the Boyovaya Machina, and that was the. I'm sorry, they had the. But they call it Stalin's organs, and it was a 122 millimeter multiple rocket launcher. And and it has a battery of 6 of those. So when they launch that battery, you've got 240 of these rockets just coming in on an area, just taking it down. During most of the Cold War, that had been upgraded to the BM-21, the Katyusha. And so then the BM-21 was upgraded to the Grad, and the Grad is a lot larger. I believe it's a 144 millimeter rocket instead of 122 millimeter. So you have 3 of these Grads launch a rocket attack on Umatilla, and so the town is basically destroyed. People are just wiped out. The armory no longer exists. Sheffield and probably about 60 National Guardsmen are all killed. The town is just totally destroyed. Very few survivors left, and those who are critically injured. Something really important that we need to talk about happens at this time, and it's one of those things I have. So let me see if I got this. Okay, so yeah. So number one thing we really need to discuss, because at this time it becomes important, and the people at first really get upset about Sarge. So let me see if I can do it. Find a page on this, and it'll be easier to explain. So CERT triage tools. There we go. Okay, CERT solutions triage tags. Let me see if this is going to show you what I want to show you. But we need to talk about triage. There we go. Yeah, it is. Nope, it's not going to let me show it to you, though. But anyhow, when we go in as part of CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, we're going to assign a level to each person who is injured. And so black, they're already dead, right? And then we've got other things that we're going to give them. And one of them is this person is going to die regardless of what we do. So we're going to tag that person and move on. Okay. That's going to take an awful lot of self-control to realize that a person is going to die. They're in pain. They're in the last throes. Hello, Holly. Welcome. Hello, Tofu. And move on, because while you're trying to take care of a person who's going to die regardless of what you do, somebody else who could survive with your assistance is being denied that, and they may die while you're doing it. So that's the main reason we want to move past the people we know are terminal and get to the people that we know we can help. So in this kind of a setting where you have a mass casualty incident like this, as a matter of fact, the Army had given Umatilla a mobile Army surgical hospital, a MASH unit, and that was totally destroyed by the Grad attack. So now, you have all these people who are critically injured, limbs lost, gut wounds, everything else. No first aid. I mean, no medical treatment whatsoever. What do you do with those people? So Sarge and Morgan begin a system of what would we call it? They kind of put people out of their misery. Let's put it that way. And so they start shooting people in the head. And that, of course, upsets some of the survivors, and they have to explain it to them. And that's one of those things that's going to be very, very difficult to explain is, how do you have mercy on somebody and, basically a mercy killing when you know that, things are going to get extremely bad and you don't want them to happen that way. You don't want them to suffer. So, we have this euthanasia going on. Where you're basically mercy killing people. And, that's a tough decision. Morally, in the Catholic Church, we're not allowed to do that. The human life is precious. And so we're not allowed to do anything like that. There is still a possibility of a miracle. And so that would be a very tough decision for most people. But if it happens, and if you see that happening, please understand, why it's happening and the implications of it. So then, as a result of that, Sarge, Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, Rocky. Colonel Morgan, as far as I'm sorry, Colonel Potter, the Harry Morgan version of of Colonel Potter. That's the one that gets me. I agree. I think he looks kind of. I think he kind of looks like a wiry Harry Morgan, and so I could get into that very easily. Hello, Butch Graves, welcome. Um, so now, you've got this whole town destroyed. I mean, a couple hundred people killed and 100 or so injured. The only survivors are those who live on the outskirts of town. And so Sarge gets a radio call. He communicates with the Department of Defense, the Army. Sarge has been promoted to a colonel, by the way, by the general. And very few people know that. So they come up with plans, and so Sarge sends, I believe it's Ted and Mike, down to kind of, and one of the maybe it's Dalton. Yeah, it's Dalton. He sends Mike, Ted, and Dalton down and to scope out where they think the Cubans and the Soviets, Russians are. And so they go down to get eyes on them, and they've got a laser designator. So they hit them with a B1. And actually, they have two B1 strikes with precision guided munitions on the area where the Cubans and Russians are. So then afterwards, you've got Sarge and the National Guard, some remaining National Guardsmen. You've got Perez and some of those other guys who were with Morgan at Morganville. Morgan and some of the other guys, civilians, those two go in and try to take care of any remaining Cubans or Russians. So they come across two that they take as prisoner. And while they're doing this, they're going around euthanizing all the wounded Cubans and Russians. And the thought process is, we don't even have enough medical kit and medical knowledge in our home to take care of these guys. So we're not going to take them back and try to take care of them because, they are the enemy and they caused all that damage to our town and our people. So, they're just euthanizing like all get out. But then they say they want to start saving some ammunition. So but Morgan goes into a frenzy. He has his tomahawk and he just starts, pew, pew. And then all of a sudden, I believe it's Dalton, either Dalton or Sarge comes up and basically stops him and says, you got to stop. You're on the edge. You're going to turn savage. You're losing your humanity. There's a fine line. There's this really fine line between sanity and insanity, and you can cross over it very easily. And the bad thing is, once you cross over it, it's extremely difficult to come back. And that's where we have a lot of post-traumatic stress syndrome from. Is a lot of these guys who kind of went over that line, and now they're trying to reintegrate back into society and come back. Morgan was right at that edge, and whoever it was, Dalton or Sarge, who pulled him back from that edge and said, "Calm down, slow down," because he wanted vengeance. He wanted to personally take care of these guys because they had harmed his friends or killed his friends, and so he was taking it extremely personally. And you can't do that as a soldier because you'll cross that line very easily. They find two alive. They find three alive. I forget. I think two Cubans and a Russian colonel who has tried to escape everything by dressing in civilian clothes. So they take all three of them. Alexei is the colonel, and they take them as captive. They take them back, and so they've got them. They notify Eglin Air Force Base, which is up near something beach. Gosh, when we went to Eglin Air Force Base for Operation Brave Shield. Panama Beach. And we went to Panama Beach to do our laundry. They had a coin-operated laundry. We were out in the field for 2 weeks. I got promoted to staff sergeant on that exercise, in the middle of that exercise. And we went down to Panama Beach, and that's where we did all our laundry and everything else. And sat there and drank a whole bunch of beers in the laundromat while we were doing our laundry. But anyhow, Eglin Air Force Base is where new headquarters for DOD is. And so they are waiting for DOD, for the general to come down, send somebody down, a helicopter down to pick up the colonel and the 2 Cubans. But Dalton, was it Dalton? I forget who it is. One of the major characters just walks in. Oh no, it was one of the wives of one of the major characters, just walks in and shoots one of them. I think it was Mel. Just walks in and just plasters one of the guys because, she wants revenge for what's happened to all of her friends. And they have to pull her off. And they say, no, we need to get these guys and the intelligence that they bear up to Eglin Air Force Base. So as the story continues, Dalton goes in to feed these guys. And the colonel and the Cuban are really impressed with how well the Americans are feeding their prisoners of war. The colonel starts giving, his propaganda stuff and how he's just a soldier following orders and everything else, and talking about how weak America is, morally decayed, and all this other kinds of stuff. Dalton gets to where he takes it personally. He just beats the crap out of the colonel, breaks his nose, kicks him in the ribs. I mean, I imagine Dalton is probably just a little bit smaller than Thad. I see Dalton as being a little bit thinner, but just a really, really muscular guy. And I see him as kind of the epitome of a Navy SEAL when I think of Dalton. And of course, Dalton speaks Russian, so he's going back and forth with the colonel in Russian. And I'll tell you, the Russian is pretty good. So remember, I spent 21 years as a Russian translator in the Army. So I will say Dalton probably went to DLI. He probably took the 47-week course of basic Russian, at least. So that was pretty good. Okay, so let me get back to my notes. So we did the talking about triage and euthanasia. We talked about being on the brink of going into savagery, the personal vendetta that Morgan had. Now, we also see kind of the same thing in Mel when she shoots that other prisoner. So we've got, these 2 characters, same family, right on the verge of becoming savages. And they have to be held back and brought back to reality and brought back to being a human being. So one of the things that they start talking about is, how people are bartering and some of the barter, the important and expensive or valuable barter items, shoes, clothes, and food being the number one commodity. Everybody's, starving to death basically. And oh, wow, that's something. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Let's see, what's Little Lone Prepper talking about up here? So Little Lone Prepper kind of is with me, my personal thing. And mine is very religiously oriented. Now, just remember, when we talk about the 5th commandment, the 5th commandment was basically mistranslated into English. And so the 5th commandment says, thou shalt not murder. It does not say thou shalt not kill. The actual Hebrew word is murder rather than kill. So, there are exceptions. Remember, right after we got the 10 commandments, we got it on Mount Horeb. Then they go 40, another 39, 40 years in the desert before they cross the River Jordan into the Promised Land. And then what do? The very first thing is kill all the Canaanites and their children. And so if it was thou shalt not kill, then, all these battles that the Israelis fought from the time they crossed the Jordan on, when we take a look at Jericho, when we take a look at a lot of things, all the way up through the Maccabeans, and their defense against the Greek invasion. And so that would be that's a mistranslation. Thou shalt not kill. It's actually thou shalt not murder. But I'm kind of with Little Lone Prepper. I don't think I could do that. I could. I probably think I could. Tag somebody as fatal or terminal and move on. The example they gave us in training was you come across a school bus, okay, and so anytime you put a tourniquet on somebody, you have to stay with the person you put the tourniquet on. And so you come across the school bus, you get into the school bus. The first thing you see is you've got a femoral artery uh, just pumping out on the bus driver, and so the bus driver now, if you don't put that tourniquet on him, the bus driver is going to die. But you got 39 kids riding back and behind the bus driver. So if you put that tourniquet on that bus driver, you must stay with that bus driver, and there are 39 kids. You don't know what condition they're in. What are you going to do with those 39 kids? Because you can't go take care of them. You got to stay with the guy you put the tourniquet on. So at that point, it becomes important, bypass the driver, go take a look at the 39 kids. If you do your inspection of 39 kids and nobody requires treatment, then you can go back and work on the bus driver. So that's one of those important triage things that, you have to really get straight in your mind and say, I don't want to do this, but there are sometimes things that I have to do. That's going to be a tough decision. It's going to be, and no matter which way you go, it will always linger. You'll have the guilt of whatever you do with you, no matter what else happens for the rest of your life. Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. Just big, strong, but yet sensitive. Very a big heart, and just yeah. I think you're exactly right. You've got that, Rocky. I would not have thought of that, but thank you, because that's a fantastic description. Thank you. No matter, I drove ambulances for 7 years. No matter what you do, you're always going to second guess yourself. So, what could I have done? Could I have done something differently? Could I have done something better? What can I learn from? How can I do it next time? And so, there are those things that you just have to sometimes do. So if the X-ray says, yeah, the femoral artery it pumps a lot of blood, gone in 7 seconds, and so that's. So if you don't get that tourniquet on right away, then he's gone. And so that's why you carry your tourniquet staged on the outside of your first aid kit. You don't carry it inside in the wrapping or anything else. You want to stage it. You want to have it ready to go. I carry 2 of them on the outside of my first aid kit. And, so that's what we do. Okay, let me see. Yeah. So, and Pat, I think you're a nurse, aren't you? So yeah, you kind of go through the same things that we do in CERT and first aid out in the field, and the same thing we do in an ambulance. So we're trying to take care of, with the EMTs from the fire department. We're trying to save as many lives as we can, and sometimes you save 4 at the expense of 1, and that's a tough decision to make. So anyhow, the barter items: food, clothes, shoes. They go through shoes in this book like you would not believe. And they've got a year. They've got one guy who basically takes old tires and turns them into sandals that they're using for shoes. And so he has a very lucrative business making sandals out of car tires. The other one that they have that's very difficult is soap. And so they recommend a lot of soap. I was watching a recommended things to have in your prepper pantry video today by Michelle Mitten, prepper veteran. She is a medically discharged combat medic, and so she has a lot of good stuff. Michelle Mitten, prepper veteran, is her channel. If I can get somebody to look that up and give the link for it. But today she was talking about, she went out and bought a whole bunch of bar soap. That soap is extremely important to her in prepping, and she buys bar soap over the liquid soap that because it takes up, you get more bang for your buck and less space occupied. Now I have my stuff that I'm getting ready for my haul video for this week, and I picked up another quart of hand soap, the kitchen hand soap. which is, this also has sanitizer in it. What's it called? Citrus liquid hand soap, antibacterial hand soap. So that's what we're storing up. We'll probably have about 4 gallons here very shortly. That's what we had prior to the pandemic lockdown, and then we kind of went through that. I just failed to replace it. I couldn't believe that. And then all of a sudden we got caught, and I said, we need more. We got plenty of sanitizer, hand sanitizer. We just don't have enough soap. And also, I need to order some more. Get those nice wipes, those body wipes. When you're in the hospital and you're immobile and you can't get up to go take a shower, they come in and they wipe you with body wipes. And these are basically soap, special soap towels, soap embedded towels that you don't have to rinse. No rinsing required. And they wipe the body down with those. Get plenty of those. That's going to be very beneficial to you. They also have no rinsing required shampoo that they use when you're bedbound in the hospital. So get that. That's going to be very important to you as well, as far as keeping clean or relatively clean. So Pat says, yes, she was a registered nurse for 40 years. And Clarity Jane was a nurse for 40 years. Wow. I went to get my allergy shots today, and so the nurse who gave me my shots is new to the clinic. I haven't seen her before, and so she didn't look old enough to be a nurse. I'll tell you that much. And she gave me my shots, and we were talking, and I said, "Are you an RN?" She says, "Oh no, I'm a BSN." I said, "Oh, okay." And so we were talking about it. I said, "Well, when I was HR director at a hospital here in town, down in Austin, actually, we had a PhD in nursing, and he insisted on being called doctor. And so he was the doctor nurse. And so you guys are great. Love the nurses. Let me see. So Fiaxera says he's loaded up on med preps there. Yes. And one of the things I don't think you can get enough of, every time, or at least once a month, I get one of the bottles of sterile saline. And you've got either pump bottles, which I prefer because you can adjust the amount of pressure you're using with it, or you can get the button activated ones, which are basically under pressure. But you need plenty of sterile saline to wound wash and to it's just going to be so beneficial in so many ways. Try to get as much sterile saline as you have. In my first aid kit, sterile saline, 4x4 gauze pads, and triangular bandages. Those are the 3 I just don't think you can have enough of. Those 3 are just critically essential, that you've got to have those. Of course, we can probably get Pat and Clarity Jane's opinions on that, as far as what they prioritize. What are your 3 priorities as far as first aid? I would say also topical antibiotics are going to be extremely important as well. Oh, wow. So do you glow at night, Fiexorus? I'm sorry. I know you hear that all the time. Never mind. Forget that I said that. That was crazy. Rocky Duck has been buying a lot of OTC meds, cold, allergy meds. Absolutely. He's a respiratory therapist, so you probably know about all of this stuff. And then you know about my machine over there that I have to do 3 times a day. And now I'm trying to get a portable oxygen concentrator. I sleep with an oxygen concentrator, but I'm trying to get a portable one for when my days are down, because I have to do this, like 4 times a day. And so, life is what it is. I'm still here, so I can take the discomforts and everything else. I'm still here and I'm happy. Gosh, and it's a great life. I have wonderful people. I have a wonderful audience. I have a wonderful wife, just great. I mean, there are some inconveniences, but that's the way it goes. Wow. I imagine that is probably true. My wife says that every time I've gone in for surgery to have shrapnel removed or anything like that, that when I come out from under anesthesia, the very first thing I do is start thanking all the nurses and techs around me and everything else. And, so I don't know, but I guess I get plenty of laughs because I thank people that they were so good and kind and successful in doing what I did. So if the extra says to get alcohol, rubbing alcohol, yeah, I have alcohol. I have rubbing alcohol, and I also have hydrogen peroxide. Let me see what else. Come on, computer. It's really getting slow with me today. It's not showing up on the screen. It's supposed to. Come on. Pat Butler says, show. It's not going to show. Let me get my mouse and see if I can do it that way. There we go. Antibiotics, dressings, cleaning solutions, and oxygen. Have to have O2 to live. Yes, absolutely. And I'll show you something here when we get closer to the end. I got something in from one of the people that I'm affiliated with. Now, another thing that happens is they catch a guy stealing. And since Umatilla's been destroyed, they don't have a jail anymore. So they can't put him in jail. They can't do anything. So what are we going to do? So they decide that the best thing to do is corporal punishment. They don't want to embarrass him or anything else. So they're going to give him. So the judge gives him 4 lashes with a cane. So he gets caned. And Dalton does the caning. And really, really important thing here that the discussion with Dalton while he's giving this corporal punishment to this guy. I mean, you're whipping this guy. He takes a bamboo staff basically and gives him 4 lashes across the buttocks and the lower legs, and it tears him apart. But he delivers slow, methodical, consistent lashes. And, he has that discussion. He has that internal discussion. And I believe he has a discussion with Morgan about the importance of, just as Morgan had that thing over the edge where he couldn't go over the edge, when you're administering corporal punishment, you can't get emotionally involved with it. You have to remember, and you have to become an automaton, basically a robot, that you're doing this, and you have to do it in a justified and dignified manner. So you don't want to do it to the point where you're beating somebody to death, but you want to do it so that you're inflicting a little bit of pain, enough so that the person realizes that they messed up and don't want to do it again, but not so much that you want to engender a vengeful retribution by the person who's being punished. So that's another one of those very difficult social decisions that we kind of have to make, and who is going to perform the administration of the corporal punishment. So you have to have somebody like a Dalton who is basically very stoic in what he does in order to administer that punishment. Then the last thing I have as notes from the book that I really wanted to discuss is at the very end, Morgan basically they hook up with another family, Dave and his family, and Dave is a cattle farmer or cattle rancher, I guess, in Florida. So he has all kinds of beef, and so they're hooking up, and Morganville trades pigs for the cows, and they're doing all this stuff. And they're interacting, and they're basically combining the 2 communities into one mega community. And so after that's accomplished, Dave or Morgan says that he wants to try to see if he can't rescue his mom and dad. He doesn't even know if they're still alive. So he's going to take a flat bottom fishing boat up the river, probably 3 days, to get to his parents so he can get them safe and bring them home. Well, it turns out that Dave, the people that they met, has a speedboat, a big speedboat. And so they take it. It only takes 1 day to get up there. Sarge, Danny, his friend, who his parents know, and Morgan go up to save them, gets his parents, brings them back down. Well, while they're there rescuing the parents, some bad guys come, and it's the 3rd time that they've tried to take on the town. So the town is defending itself with bolt-action rifles, and his dad has a .410, I think it's a .45 caliber 410 shotgun over under kind of survival type rifle, and they're defending their little neighborhood that way. All these old guys have things. One guy even has an M1 Garand, and so in the middle of the night, the bad guys come again. They messed up because Morgan's got his AK-47 with grenade launcher. Danny has an AR-15, an M16 or an M4. I'm sorry, an M4, and Sarge has a mini-me. So a mini-me is basically a chain-fed minigun firing 5.56 millimeter. And so when they come up and they attack, the three of them open up. Two grenades, a 1 minute burst from the mini-me, and the guys are all dead, and the truck's on fire and everything else. And so they basically saved the town. One of the guys is an ex-Marine from Vietnam, and so he talks Morgan into giving him his AK-47 with grenade launcher, and they pretty much do their thing and everything. So that goes that way. But while they're doing that, this one woman, Maureen, just before the attack, this one woman, Maureen, is into all these conspiracy theories. And so she's arguing with Morgan. And of course, he's got his star on. He's the sheriff there of North Lake County. And she's arguing with him and saying, well, you can't trust the government. You guys are just here. Why didn't you hear earlier? And all those conspiracy type things that you hear, and people have to drag her away. So here's one of the key things. All those conspiracies, when there's a lack of communications and a lack of knowledge of what's going on in the world around you, they're going to ferment and they're going to explode. And so you're going to have all kinds of conspiracy theories. Oh, by the way, to all of those of you who thought that we were going to be turned into zombies yesterday at 2:00, or who thought that it was going to activate our cell phones and we were going to be captives and everything else, and all those conspiracy theories, I accept your apologies for spreading fear and all that kinds of stuff, because as I said, it appears that it's the Conrad system that I grew up with as a kid. If this had been an emergency, you would have been instructed to turn your radio to 640 or 1240 AM on your radio dial for further information. Conrad was replaced by the emergency alert. Then that was replaced in 95 by what we have now, the emergency alert system. There is a law that they have to test it nationwide every 3 years. This was on that 3-year anniversary. So, I mean, everything showed that this was just, we're doing what we need to do. Plus, it's an opportune time because we want to make sure that system's working. It appears that we're going to be getting into a war with Russia here in the near future. So it's best to have all your communication systems and all your warning systems and all your civil defense stuff taken care of ahead of time, not afterwards. So that's pretty much it. And the book ends basically with Grandma and Grandpa being brought back down to Morganville. And as they are celebrating, and as everybody's kind of getting together and celebrating the fact that they are brought down, Ted and Mike have found their friends, their female friends, in Dave's compound, his daughter and his great niece, it's his granddaughter. It's his granddaughter from a different sister, not the one that not Crystal. And so Ted and Mike are hooking up with the two of them, and they're having a small party. Kay has figured out a way with Mel to make ice cream. So it's the first time they've had ice cream in over a year. The parents are there. They're eating beef stew, and voila, the 4 engineers show up and they hook it up, and all of a sudden there's electricity and air conditioning. And so they've hooked up Morganville to electricity, and that's how the book ends, is having electricity there. They've already hooked it up to what they're using as the new hospital, the high school gymnasium, and I forget where that is. It might be Ocala. But anyhow, one of the small towns around there, they've hooked up the gymnasium so that they can get the survivors who are being treated, a little bit more comfort. And then Jesse has figured out a way that with the steer that they butchered, to take and get marrow out of the bones, turn that marrow into basically a broth, and then they're feeding warm broth to the people who haven't had anything solid to eat. And so that's how they're trying to give them stuff. So all kinds of good things are happening right there at the end of the book. And I look forward to book 11. Book 10 was fantastic. It's a lot of action, a lot of combat action, a lot of mental stuff about make up your mind about euthanasia, make up your mind about triage. Then you've got that constant emotional thing going on with Thad and is it Maria or Diana? Anyhow, and is it okay to love again after you've lost so dramatically? And just a year ago, his wife and child, and he has that guilt complex going on of why am I still here and they're gone and I love them so much, and so that's kind of that emotional challenge that constantly goes on with people. And so that's kind of how the book ends. So let's see what you got. My background was a lot of trauma, so I always think worst case and first. Yep, absolutely. Got to. Probably the first one that I did that was extremely traumatic was I had a guy that his girlfriend had severed his organ. And so when we got there, we basically took a large gauze pad, covered it, tried to get direct pressure on it. And we called the hospital and told them what we had and what we were coming in with it. And the doctor came out with a cauterizing iron. I mean, he pulled that gauze off right in the ambulance and just burned it shut. And oh God, it took forever to get that smell out of the ambulance. It was unbelievable. But that was my first one where I was really afraid that something was going to happen that was bad. But he lived. I'm not sure he wanted to after that, but we did keep him alive. So after reading the book series, I made sure I get a good get-home bag and plan and stash 2 weeks of, wow, Rocky, that's fantastic. Let me tell you, that's one of the things I was really impressed with in this book, in Black Autumn, that I just finished as well. In the back, he has some appendices. So he has Plan to Bug Out. So he has a link. I'm not going to give it to you simply because I want you to buy his book. He put an awful lot of effort into writing this. I think we owe him his just dues and his income for having written such a phenomenal book. But it's a Plan to Bug Out. It's a free bug out bag builder checklist, and he gives you a link to go to his website to do that. He has Plan to Survive. So he has basically, what do you need? It's a checklist of things that you need to consider on what you're going to have inside your home is if you're going to hunker down. And so just he has some fantastic tools available to you to get back. Now, at some point in the near future, I have done videos on my Get Home bag. For those of you who don't know, I started building my bug out bag in 1980. And so this is going to be an argument against what a lot of you are going to say. And I constantly upgraded. I probably have a whole stuff out in the garage. As a matter of fact, I joined Hudson Valley Prepping, has a Facebook group where they sell used old prepper things and ship them to people. And so, I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I've upgraded from out in the garage, a whole box full, because I constantly upgraded my bug out bag for, 30 some odd years. And then I think it was in 2015, I had a brand new car and it was parked out in the driveway, and and it was the first electronic opening key that I'd ever had. Somebody had a master to it. They got into my car. They stole my .45 pistol. They stole my Get Home bag. I mean, I had an oxygen purifier in the car, because of my lungs. So what happened was when I was the HR director for the homeless shelter, third largest homeless shelter in the U.S., I was on the elevator with somebody who had MRSA pneumonia. And so I got community-acquired MRSA pneumonia and spent 3 weeks in ICU on a ventilator. That's where a lot of my lung problems came from, other than the fact I've been an asthmatic my entire life. So, so I had an oxygen purifier in my car, and they stole that. So I probably lost about $5,000 worth of stuff. So lesson number one, if you have a get home bag and you keep it in your car, make sure you have an accurate inventory of every item that's in it and the value, its replacement value. Because I only probably got about $1,200-$1,500 for my get home bag. I probably had about $3,000 invested in it because I just didn't have a complete inventory and replacement cost. I wanted something that I would have immediately. I know everybody says, do not buy a pre-assembled bag because you're going to throw some of that stuff out. You know what? The bag I made myself, I threw a whole bunch of stuff out over the course of 30 years. So it's going to happen, whether it's homemade or whether you buy something that's on the market. The one that I ended up buying the bug out bag from Echo Sigma. And I have replaced very little of it, actually. It's been a pretty good bag. And so that's what I keep in my pickup as my get home bag now. So I highly recommend it. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't get anything. If you go to Echo Sigma and get one of their bags, they have 3 fantastic bags. I recommend all 3 of them. I will say that I think they're good bags. I like Dollar General. Dollar General has the 5 candle emergency lighting kit. There's 5 wax candles in a little package. $1. Now I think they're $1.25 now. But I was stopping by there every month or so and picking up a lot of good stuff at Dollar General. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Oh, I am so jealous. I am so jealous. Yeah, I asked my doc if he would join our neighborhood group, and he said no. There's a group of special forces guys here who have their own group, and I'm their doctor. And it just so happens I wear my hat. Oh, it's over there. I wear my hat everywhere I go. You can see it. It's in my logo. It should be down here in the bottom. You can see my hat, and so what I've done is I took my ASA regimental crest and put it on one side and my rank W3 on the other side. And I wore that to a local burger joint, and there were 3 special forces guys sitting there. And so we started talking, and I think that's the group that my personal doctor is the doctor to in an SHTF situation. But yeah, I have an RN. She is a urology RN, but in our group, we do have one RN, a urology RN. But, that's better than nothing. So I don't have any O2 bottles. I have but I do have whole house solar. So I do have, my oxygen concentrator. We could use that, and that we could run that the whole time. Hello, my prepper journey. Welcome. Yeah, thank you very much for checking in. I appreciate that. So quart mason jars of sterile water that she pressure canned in her preps. Absolutely great. Good idea. I would recommend you look up, and I think it's 2%. Look up the formula on how to turn that into sterile saline water. But I believe it's 2% is the normal mixture of saline solution that they use for IV drips. Now you can get it up to 4%, but from what I understand, at 4%, you have to go through special. You have to do special things. Once you get up to a 4% concentration of saline, then it requires special monitoring and testing and blood testing and everything else. But 2% normal saline is the normal IV solution, and I strongly recommend you have that. It's a good wound wash. And having what you're doing is phenomenal. You are miles ahead of everybody else. So take my Prepper Journey's advice. If you can boil some water and put it into clean, sterile mason jars, that's great. That's a great start. Fantastic. Great idea. Thank you. Yeah, you can buy them. I just, I guess between, I have 3 healthcare insurances, and all 3 of them are federal government. So my primary, of course, is Medicare. My secondary is TRICARE for Life, which is retired military. And then I have tertiary of Veterans Administration. And so the Medicare on my oxygen concentrator, I cannot have the same oxygen concentrator for more than 5 years. So I asked the guy when he came to replace it, I said, can I buy that from you? Can I have it? You're just theoretically, according to Medicare, you're going to dispose of it. So can I just keep it? And he says, no, we have to dispose of it. We have to keep a record of how we dispose of it. And I go, oh gosh, I would have loved to have had a backup. So oh, that's fantastic, Little Lone Prepper. Fantastic. You're ahead of us. We have one nurse, and then I'm kind of pre-EMT. I'm what they call advanced Red Cross first aid. And then I was replaced by the EMTs and those guys. So yeah, the exorcist is agreeing with me. Look up how to make the concentrate, how to make your own sterile saline. I think it's 2%. One of the nurses should know if I'm right about that 2% normal saline. Hi, Sandy. Welcome. And that's fine. I hope you did it before you had to have a prescription for your fish. Isn't that terrible? I mean, you got to take your fish into a vet now to get a prescription so you can get that for your fish. I have both Jace and contingency medical. And then I have some other prescription things. Now, I'm allergic to what is it called? Azithromycin. I'm allergic to azithromycin. I go into anaphylactic shock. The way we found out was I was on the third day of a Z-Pack, and I was up in Canton for First Monday, and which is the biggest flea market in Texas. And I took my disaster response trailer up there, and I served food as a concession stand. I was on my third day of amoxicillin or azithromycin, and my tongue started swelling. I couldn't even lick the outside of my teeth. That's how swollen my tongue got. Could not stick it outside, beyond my teeth, and it was swelling up. It was basically obstructing my esophagus and everything else, and so I had to go to the emergency room. I spent like 8 hours on a Benadryl drip and oxygen, cannula in, trying to get it because I couldn't breathe through my mouth. But that was quite an experience. So I don't do azithromycin anymore. So they had to give me doxycycline and an extra doxycycline in place of azithromycin. But let me see. Don't we have great subscribers here? I mean, they are just fantastic. Yes, doxycycline does degrade. And so that can become toxic. So make sure you stay up to date on that. Do not take expired doxycycline. Sandy says she understands the smells. Yeah, that's the one thing you can never get over. And the other one is we transported a patient from San Francisco down to Carmel Community, and he was a chemo patient, and we had to put a bedpan under him, and that's another one of those odors that you never forget. It took us like 3 days to get that smell out of the ambulance. Yeah, I can't do the Z-Packs, so. Oh, Sandy had the same experience. Her get-home bag was stolen out of her car. I'm assuming it's a she. Please forgive me if I'm mistaken. Oh, fantastic! Great. Well, no, terrible. It was stolen, but I'm so happy that it provided a little bit of information that helped you to recover the things that were taken. Gosh, that is so great. So you make me feel great that was able to help somebody. Let me see here. Yeah, so I've got two. Of course, I have my crucifix, my St. Michael medal, and then, of course, I have my med alert here. And then in my wallet behind my driver's license, I have the first thing you come to is my med alert card. And my Med Alert card says that allergies are azithromycin, formaldehyde, and formoterol derivatives. Who to contact? Roman Catholic, please call a priest. And then right behind that, I have this one, says, I am a Catholic, please call a priest. So that's kind of right behind I also have another card behind that probably is morbid, but I've already prepaid and pre-planned my funeral. So it gives instructions on who has been paid to dispose of my body should anything happen. So we did that, probably 30 years ago. Helen and I prepaid our funeral expenses and our designed our own funerals and all that kinds of stuff. So yeah, we've got that taken care of. That won't be a burden on anyone. The only thing is lately, I don't know why, but I guess it's because of the number of funerals I've been to in the last couple of months. I lost a brother-in-law and I lost a sister-in-law in the last 6 months. So I've been trying to figure out the songs I want played at my funeral. And, I don't want Amazing Grace. I want uplifting songs. I want people to know the joy of what awaits us once we're gone. If you are prepared for it, that it's going to be the person will be released and have a joyous thing. So I don't want things that are going to make people cry. Because I won't be crying, and so I hope I won't be crying. So I'm hoping that I can use that opportunity to convince other people of the joy in finding a relationship with our Creator. So let me see. Yes, I've noticed that. That's one of those precautionary things, is not to be exposed to too much sunlight while you're taking it. Let me see. So Pat Butler says, years ago, she was a nurse aide while going to nursing school. Working in a nursing home, had a patient accidentally set himself on fire. And that smell never, you're absolutely right. So here's another one of those strange things that people don't understand. And gosh, it's been an hour and 6 minutes. If you look back into the major causes of death for females, from when we started keeping those records, the two major causes of death for females, and I have a feeling we're going to go back to this if we lose electricity and everything else, and we go back into a pre-20th century environment. Hello, Joe Hornick. Welcome from Carlisle, Pennsylvania. What is that? That's the Command and General Staff College there, I believe. But anyhow, Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. But anyhow, the two major causes of death for women were, number one, childbirth, and number two, burns, because they would take the charcoal in the chimney and they'd spread it out onto their hearth, and they would set that out and use that to cook on. And they had these long flowing dresses. And so what would happen is their dress would catch on a piece of charcoal or on a burned wood, and that would catch the dress on fire. And so the vast majority of them died, not necessarily from the wounds, the burns themselves, but from the infections of the burns and dehydration over time afterwards. So that was a long, agonizing death. Yeah, and it's to the point now to where CERT gave me a backpack on wheels. And so, I have both my CERT bag and my bug out bag, or my get home bag, in my pickup. My CERT helmet and everything else ready to go in case we get called. But if it comes down to it, I'm going to use that CERT bag on wheels and attach my get home bag to it. Now, I think I've told y'all I bought 2-wheel dollies, so both mine and Helen's bug out bags are what do you call them? Stair stripped? No, not stair stripped. Ziplocked to the frame of a 2-wheel dolly, so that we're going to use the 2-wheel dolly to carry our bug out bags. Wow, that's great. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Joe. Appreciate it. And so I guess he moved back to the eastern side of Pennsylvania from the western side. I did some consulting work with Pennsylvania Power and Electric, PPE, and they own 3 Mile Island, they own Limerick, and they owned Peach Bottom. So 3 nuclear power plants. I did a lot of work for them there in that area. We stayed in Reading, right next to the mall there in Reading, Pennsylvania. And then we stayed in Valley Forge, but they don't call it Valley Forge anymore. I forget what they call it. And we stayed in the hotel there next to the Mall of the Americas. And I lost my hat and gloves there while I was eating in the courtyard. Forgot to pick them up and take them out to go back to the hotel. Did some work for Carpenter Steel in Reading, Pennsylvania. So, I mean, yeah, I'm familiar with that area. That's a beautiful area. I love that area. So Clarity Jane's in South Georgia now, and not so sure if I would love that. That's we're close enough to the coast here in the Austin area that we get a little bit of the humidity, but gosh, it's a lot more humid here than it is back home in El Paso. So Sandy says on putting the bug out bags on wheels is a great idea. Wow. I found out something. We went to a play Friday night, and the play was about Dan Moody. Dan Moody was the youngest prosecutor, county attorney, district attorney in Texas history. And he was the first person, and it was 100 years ago this month. At the end of September, beginning of October, in 1923, he was the first one to prosecute members of the people who wear the white robes, okay? And the first one to actually get convictions against them. So he got 4 of them convicted of tarring, feathering, beating this traveling salesman because he was staying at a boarding house. And the owner of the boarding house was an attractive single female. Turns out that one of the hat guys kind of had a crush on her. He didn't like the fact that this guy was staying with her at the boarding house. So he made accusations that they were having a thing. At that time, basically, I equate this group to basically the Taliban. They were the moral enforcers of the community. So they thought that she was engaging in an illicit affair. So they were going to tar and feather this guy and send him away. So they beat him up, tarred and feathered him and everything else, and he survived. And so this was the first prosecution against that organization. They convicted 4 of them. Membership in Texas over the course of the next year dropped 50%. And so where they had been a major power in Texas, as a matter of fact, my wife's great-grandfather was executed by them because he wouldn't pay them protection money. So they shot him down in the field while he was out mowing, or not mowing, but plowing. So, they were a very contentious organization. Let me see. Okay, so Sandy wants to know if anybody there is from Washington State. Sandy, would you tell me, am I assuming correct that you are female, or am I incorrect? You know how assumptions are, they get us in trouble. And then once we've taken care of that, then don't forget, we're going to do volume 2 of Franklin Horton's series. Let me see if I can find the book here. I should have it right here. No, this is book 3. Is this the right one? Yeah. We're going to do Ashes of the Unspeakable at the end of this month. Okay. So this is volume 2 of Franklin Horton's Borrowed World series. So this is a series of people in North Carolina. They were away at a convention in the Capitol. They're actually from the Appalachian Mountain area of North Carolina, way to southwest corner. And so they have to get home without vehicles after an EMP as well. So very good book. I'm loving Franklin Horton. I'm as much as A. American, as much as Stephen Smith. We've got some really, really great authors that we've been talking about. Okay, Numbers chapter 6, verses 24, 25, and 26. If I can find my little tab here. Do you think I have enough? Do you think I tab my Bible enough? Golly. But anyhow, so my daughter gave me more Bible tabs, more highlighters, Bible highlighters, because of the thin paper you don't want it to go through, and a Bible pen marking kit. Okay, so this is so that these are extra fine colored pens so that they don't go through the Bible as you're highlighting and underlining and all and taking notes and everything else. But anyhow, Numbers chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. So with that we're going to end this evening. I will put the link in my Amazon store for the book we'll be discussing at the end of the month, Ashes the Unspeakable by Franklin Horton, and that will be the last Thursday of this month. So, oh gosh, Franklin, or Theoxorus, my wife. Oh, thank you. So I was good. So thank you very much for that. And it depends on what you call, and when you imagine, I've been doing this, I've been actively prepping since 1980. My wife and I, when we got married in 1984, we moved from Central Texas, San Angelo, Goodfellow Air Force Base. Yes, that's a joint service training center, and I was an instructor for the Army on an Air Force base, and went overseas. So I had to give away all my preps, 5-gallon buckets of wheat and flour and rice and everything else. And she learned about bug out bags because when we got to Germany, you had what they called, oh gosh, I forget what it's called, but every family member had to have their own bug out bag and all their documents and everything else, because if war happened, NEO is what it was called, non-combatant evacuation orders. So they would then take all the families, collect them in a bus, take them up to Ramstein Air Force Base, and fly them back to the States while we were deployed to fight at the border. So, when we first got married, one of the very first things she did because we got married the day I left the unit to go to Germany, so she joined up later. But one of the very first things she had to do was she got introduced to bugging out and bug out bags and non-combatant evacuation orders. So we've been doing this for quite a while. So to imagine how much I've spent over the course of the last 45 years, unimaginable. I think what would be more interesting is how much money I've wasted. So that would be, I would cry. I'm sure I would cry. I could probably pay for my retirement. So anyhow, please join us. We'll be here next Monday. Monday night, we're doing part 3 of 4 on the citizenship questions and discussing where they are in the Constitution and things like that. Tuesday night, we're finishing up our nonfiction book, which is the book on situational preparedness. And this will be the last chapter of it. And then 2 weeks from Tuesday night, we begin the new book. This is the 3rd edition, the 2022 edition, and I just bought it, so I'm in the process of reading it and highlighting it now. I had the original 1st edition. I bought this when I was at Field Station Augsburg in 1979. So this is 1979 version. This is the 2022 version. And so I'm trying to get caught up on that, and we'll be discussing those. So we got all kinds of good books going on, and hopefully y'all are getting something out of it. Watch my shorts. I've been coming up with all kinds of ideas on things you can do as far as eating well in a post-apocalyptic world, and those are all in shorts. So thank you all for being here. Remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, respectful to each other. We are all God's children, and we need to treat each other that way. So remember, see you at the other end, because we're all going to come out of this together. Take care. Bye-bye.